Next up, we're going to be talking about how we tailor our media sales and our event sales forces to work together. Right now, publishers are all chasing the integrated sale. We're offering buys across digital, across print, but where does that leave events? When we listened to David Kisselstein give the keynote earlier this afternoon, he had talked about how marketing services were the single fastest growing line of business for Penton, but events are the largest source of business for Penton right now. So as publishers, we really need to think about how we're extending that sell across events, going from media to events, going from events to media, taking the event experience beyond the event itself, and then also how do we really knock down the walls between our different groups. I think if you ask a lot of publishers, the events group is often walled off. Just ask them about sharing data between the media sales side and then also the event side. Our speakers today include Patrick Gallagher, who's the event director for 1105 Media in charge of education technology events, and Mike Garity, vice president of global event strategy and business development with Asset International.
Thank you all for coming today. Patrick Gallagher from 1105 Media, event and sales director for 1105 Media. And today we're going to talk about structuring the sales force for media and events. My perspective. So I wanted to talk about who I am. I'm an event animal. So how many people here in the room are event animals? Not a lot, right? So let's talk about who I am and why I'm an event animal. So I've been involved in event sales and management for 24 years. Started all the way back in 1984. My father worked for Stanley Works. I was in high school. He said, Pat, let's go check out the National Hardware Show. And so we got on a plane. I thought it was great. I wasn't going to have to go to school for a couple of days. My father took me to the National Hardware Show. I walked in. I fell in love. It was the greatest thing I'd ever seen before in my life. It was the greatest thing. Wow, what is this all about? Never seen a trade show before. So I've been on the vendor side as well as on the for-profit management side, okay? So I've been involved with my first job out of school. I was working for a manufacturing company, made food processing machines, went to shows all over the world, fish processing machines, if you can believe that. We filleted fish on the show floor. It was a great thing. So, a German company, Bader North America. So I've worked for Diversified, I've worked for Advanstar, I've worked for Questex, I've worked for 1105 Media. Okay, all of these companies all had publishing and events. But I was always on the event side because, as I said before, I'm an event animal. Sales professional, but I spent time in ops. I spent time in content. I spent time in publishing. I took jobs in those areas for a reason. And here's the reason. I'm a sales guy too. I'm a sales animal as well. I wanted to know how to better sell the product and make more money, right? So I wanted to learn what ops concerned themselves with, what content concerned themselves with, what publishing concerned themselves with, what were their concerns. And I did those jobs for a year to 2 years, okay, to get the opportunity so that I could become a better salesperson. My goal was to be the president of a trade show company, okay? Still working on that. So I currently oversee $6 million portfolio of educational technology events. One of them is FETC, one of the world's largest events for educational technology for the K-12 market. 400 exhibitors in the neighborhood of 8,000 to 9,000 attendees. Conference attendees. I am involved on a daily basis with product development, event direction, sales direction, talking directly and selling directly to vendors, as well as helping my sales team sell to those people. And again, passionate about events since 1984. Next slide, please. Actually, I just did it. It works. Great. So what are we going to talk about? I'm going to talk about the first step. Okay, so Michael is going to be talking about at Asset International how they've taken it to the next level. I'm going to be talking about the basics of cross-selling products. Okay, so why structure a sales force to cross-sell between media/lead gen and events? What's the keys to creating a working basic structure? What's the pitfalls? And then Michael's going to take over and talk about the next gen structure. Okay, it's not working. I need the next slide. All right, so why do we need to concern ourselves with this? Why are we selling lead gen and events at the same time? Well, let's talk about a couple of different things. How have these companies come together? Okay, so the one at the bottom here, this was the first company I worked for, Diversified Expositions. We had National Fisherman Magazine. It was for the fishing industry, commercial fishing. So what happened is that the company, the Hildreth family, who owned Diversified, decided, Fish Expo's available, let's go out and buy it. Because we have this great magazine by name of National Fisherman, and let's start a whole new arm for events. And that was my first time. I used to buy exhibit space from National Fisherman and Fish Expo. Remember I told you we used to fillet fish on the show floor with the machines? Well, we did it at their events. Okay, so I ended up coming over. And while we were there, so we developed, instead of purchasing events, we had the magazine, they purchased an event, and we created a new event, Pacific Marine Expo. So at 1105 purchased 101 Communications, got THE Journal. They then bought FETC, and then things that have generated out of that, digital products, FETC Virtual, FETC Converge, our newsletter, also the different microsites and different things that we do for digital lead gen for K-12 markets. Next slide, please. So what changed? Why was this all happening? Well, I call this the Krakoff model, the mid-90s Krakoff model. So I went from Diversified to Advanced Star. When Mr. Krakoff took over Advanced Star, bought Magic, and one of the great things he did was he brought together events and media under one management group. So if it was related by technology or by subject matter, he brought together the magazines and the trade shows together in a management structure. Now, some companies had been doing this, some companies hadn't, but somebody had finally put a name on it and done it. So they satisfied, why did they want to do this? What was the purpose here at Advanced Star in the mid-90s, late 90s? Well, the goal was to satisfy the needs of the vendor customers one-stop shop. Now, this was way before digital lead gen. So it was publishing, it was catalogs, buyer's guides, and events, okay? So what the other part of it was cross-team business development. What do I mean by that? Well, I, as an event organizer, I took a look at all those vendors that the advertisers were talking to, and those are good sales opportunities. And all the advertising people, salespeople said, my God, you have 300 or 400 exhibitors that aren't advertising. We got to talk to them. Obviously, that's the reason why they were brought together in a structure, right? Basic stuff. But the other part of it was support content. So if we wanted to beef up our conference and we wanted to bring in more high-level people to our conferences or to our trade shows, we needed content. So if we had an in-house expertise, we had editors, we had publishers whose only job it was is to understand what's going on in the marketplace. We had a Gartner right in our backyard, right in our office. I could walk over and say, hey, what's going on with this? So that was another benefit of bringing them together. Again, generating sales opportunities. But here's the key, guys, is that we had two separate sales teams, right? Events, media. Next slide, please. Okay, so since the 90s, that's all been evolving. Now what have we added? We've added digital lead gen, right? Okay, the internet exploded. Our vendor needs started to change. About the turn of 2000, we were all freaking out about the Y2K issue. And what was happening was a lot of our exhibitors is they were starting to question what the ROI of the money that they were spending on events. They were saying, what am I getting for the money that I'm spending? What am I getting for those leads? How many leads am I collecting at the event? And this was a paradigm shift for the exhibit industry. Whereas a lot of exhibits, companies, or for-profit management and sales teams, they could roll out a contract and people would come back to that show and, yep, we're going to do your show again. Now there was a question, how many leads did we get out of that? Now, the issue with the vendors is they couldn't necessarily measure it. That was the biggest problem, and it still is today. We're not getting ROI. When we sit down and we talk to them, well, what do you mean? How many leads? What turned into sale? They can't tell you. Okay? We hear this a lot about with our events. But this is what was happening. Okay? Now, so a lot of what was also happening is that mid-management things were going on in the economy. People were losing their jobs. A lot of shakeout was happening. And a lot of marketing was being pulled under one envelope or one umbrella. right? And you started to see, not across the board, and I'm generalizing, but you started to see some companies, particularly high-tech companies, who were starting to make buying decisions with their marketing teams. They were doing events, and they were doing advertising, and this new thing called lead gen and digital, and this great thing called the internet. And I can put a banner ad, and people can click through, and they can ask for information, and wow, this is the greatest thing in the world. So, as an event organizer, I was looking for ways to make more money. How can I generate more revenue? Okay? And what was happening is we have these new things. Wow, I can put ads in a magazine. If I have a sister magazine, is there a buyer's guide? Can I sell advertising to the show issue of that sister magazine, which is becoming our show issue for our event, is what we did at Scantech all the way back in the late 90s. We're looking for revenue opportunities, right? Because the company was owned. They wanted to see a progressive growth, 5 to 10%. Everybody deal with that on a day-to-day basis, right? Everybody's always asking for more revenue, so we have to be more creative. And we had this great new thing called the publications and the websites. This was before digital, so it was, we had the magazine websites, brand new thing, okay? So we then started to see the opportunity for development of combined packages. So I'm working with a company, and I can sell them a whole litany of items now, not just a booth. It's not just the question, hey, you want to buy a booth? It's, hey, do you want to buy a booth? Do you want to buy a sponsorship package? We have this great magazine. You can reach 100,000 buyers all throughout the year. We have a special event issue. All these things were going on. Great new things for our sales teams. Next slide, please. So, 11:05, as I said before, Michael's going to be talking about the next evolution. At 11:05, we are in a 2 sales team method, okay? So, next slide, please. Why 2 teams? And this is something that you can consider for yourself as it relates to what you're going to do. So the way I look at it is I keep doing that, and I'm sorry, I keep whacking my microphone. You have to look at your sales team skill. How skilled is your sales team understanding, your event sales team, understanding what lead gen is? What's the essence of lead gen? What does that mean? What is the ROI? What are the key selling factors that you need to understand to sell lead gen? Now, let's talk about your media people. Do they understand how to sell events? Do they understand how to sell sponsorships for events? Okay? So it's all dependent upon what your sales team skill is now and what you have time for training to get them to be. So that's a part of the reason why right now at 11:05 Media, right now, we are in a 2-team structure, okay? So a couple other things. This is a key point. Who is the event contact versus the lead gen media contact, okay? And how do agencies flow into that part of it? Now, for my event that I work on, FETC, we have 400 exhibiting companies. They average $6,500 spend per event. The top 10% have opportunity, I feel 10 to 15% have opportunity to purchase additional lead gen opportunities based on the size of those companies and based on who they are. Are they bellwether companies? Are they startups? Are they small mom and pops? Are they distributors? There's a lot of questions. Are they regional as opposed to national? A lot of issues there, right? At the end of the day. So a lot of times people say, well, why can't you sell an ad to all 400? Well, you can't. Not everybody has the money. As I said, at FETC, my average spend is $6,500. Now, we have other events where the average spend is over $20,000. Now there's going to be more opportunity, okay? But a key point here is when you're talking to your salespeople and you're thinking, okay, wow, this is going to be great, think about and ask your salespeople, are they dealing with a marketing contact who is dealing with event decisions and media decisions, or is it separate, okay? I talk to my salespeople all the time. We want horizontal contacts. You got an event person? Great. Who's the director of marketing? Who's the VP of marketing? We want to have them on the phone. Sometimes it gets knocked back down. Sure, this is what we're going to do. This is our decision. Getting that person back on the phone is very difficult. You have to look at what your mix is and who your salespeople are talking to. And agencies is a key issue. Okay? Are you willing to give a commission on exhibit space? Are you willing to give a commission on sponsorships. If you're not, it's going to limit your opportunity for combined sales, okay? You may not have to deal with a lot of agencies. Maybe you're doing a lot of direct sales directly to these companies. At 1105 Media for FETC and our educational technology advertisers through THE, there's a lot of direct sales. So we know. But there still is, probably in the end of the day, about 40% agency. So that limits what we can do and what we're developing. Again, looking at who your contacts are, okay? Next slide, please. So what's happening at 1105 is that you have an event salesperson who's talking to a company. And what we do at 1105 is we seed our sponsorship packages with advertising. So what we do is if somebody's willing to spend $15,000, $25,000, or $50,000 on an event sponsorship, we're going to put an ad in that package. Remember what I said in the slide before, looking at your average cost of what people are willing to spend? Okay? If you're up in that neighborhood, somebody's willing to spend $15,000 to be an FETC or $25,000 or $50,000, that's a prime target for our advertising. So we'll put an ad in there. That's to seed sales. Now I know somebody in this room is saying, yeah, but what if the salespeople, the media salespeople already sold them an ad? Right? Somebody's thinking that, I'm sure. Right? Well, at the end of the day, you got to take the good with the bad. Right? You're trying to find new leads for your media products, for your lead gen products. So sometimes that is going to overlap, but you have to take that chance. Okay? So what we're doing with our media people and our event people, okay? Event people are talking, hopefully at a high level, VP marketing, manager marketing, find out what their needs are. That's the bare minimum requirement of what I tell my salespeople. That's the bare minimum requirement that I have a conversation when I'm direct selling to my vendors. That's my first question. I've already done my research. I already know the answers. But I'm also asking the question. So I want to build a full-scale proposal. I want to add in different products into that. I may ask that question. What are you doing for lead gen? What are you doing for advertising? You know about THE, okay? I'm going to, hey, can we talk to you about an event sponsorship package? Now again, I'm probably not offering that to the startup company who is already complaining to me that they don't want to spend $2,800 on the booth because that's too expensive, right? Am I going to be wasting my time if I'm having that conversation with them? Yes. So what it comes down to is recognizing, doing my research before, and recognizing who I'm talking to, okay? Next slide, please. Working to two-team structure, okay? So if you're going to have two-team structure, there's some key things that you need to do. Number one, training, okay? Your event salespeople need to understand the costs, the process, how all these things work, okay? If they're not prepared and they don't understand, okay, they're not going to be able to sell it. So what that means is that at any given time, my media people at 1105 or my event people know exactly what they need to sell and what it is, okay? It's very specific, all right? So we're going to go back to the slide. So easy to understand sales material is very important. So on the media side, if you want somebody to sell your product, make sure that the sales sheets are easy to understand. What is a microsite? What kind of training are you going to do to train event salespeople to drive leads for you? Okay, the more training you do, the better off you are. Okay, one of the key things is what is the standard discounting opportunities that you're going to give these people? All right? Standard law and events. We don't discount space. Don't do it. Absolutely don't do it. Oh, by the way, we don't do it. Okay? I know that's not the case with media. All right? I'll discount sponsorships all day long. Okay, but not space. So when I'm dealing and giving that information to the media side of things, I make it very clear. Space stays what it is, sponsorships, and you can discount your sponsorships this way. If we had the file that was working, you would see an Excel spreadsheet. And each one of our packages is built for a specific reason. There's a value within those packages. And at any given time, our salespeople can remove an item out of a package and it has a value. So if a customer says, you know what, Pat, I can't afford the $15,000 for the silver sponsorship. You know what, Johnny or Jane, that's fine. How much do you have? I have $12,000. Okay, Well, I can take this event sponsorship and I'm allowed to discount it by 20%. But I'm going to remove this item out of it. I'm not going to just give you that package for $12,000. If they don't want to spend the amount of money, they have to lose some skin as well. So I'm going to remove a couple items right out of that package, right? 50-50 negotiation. So it's the same thing when you're giving that information to your media people. They need to understand how that all works, okay? Required use of the CRM system. This is a key point, okay? You should have your salespeople on both the media side and the event side working and using the same CRM system. This is key to this. Now, someone's going to say, Pat, do you do that at 1105 Media? It's not 100%. It really isn't, okay? It's one of our biggest struggles. Because the more information that goes on, because you know what happens, the salespeople say, well, if I put all that information in, that event animal is going to go and take all that information and get all that revenue from that company. I'm not going to get anything, right? That's what they usually say to you. Now, wait a minute. First of all, they're not your customer salesperson. They're 1105's customer, number one. And number two, it's usually from a different bucket. It's usually from a different budget bucket. So it doesn't really matter. The more information that's in the CRM system that everybody can share, the better off you're going to be, okay? Cross-placement of products and standard packages, as I said before, seeding the sales. Next slide, please. So I already talked about this as it relates to how to discount. When someone says, what are you going to do for me? Make sure that the other side of the aisle understands how you discount. That's the most important part here. Next slide. All right, a couple of different ways. Now, who gets all the credit? Who gets all the revenue? Well, there's a couple different ways you can do that, right? What we do right now at 1105 is we hand off the customer. Someone's talking to somebody, they're selling them a booth sponsorship. Maybe there's an ad in there, maybe not. They're interested in ads. They're going to hand off that lead to media. And if it turns into a sale, there's a transfer of revenue or a referral bonus. In other companies that I've worked at, we've done something a little slightly different. We have a contractor fulfillment process, or had a contractor fulfillment process. Meaning if I'm a salesperson and I sell a webinar, an ad, whatever the case may be, okay, I'm going to get my commission, and my boss, or me, as in this case, as the event director as well, I'm going to get a good portion of that revenue going to my bottom line. But the media side is going to get some revenue too. They're going to charge me a fulfillment fee. So let's talk about it. Let's use an example. $15,000 webinar, let's say. $15,000, $20,000, somewhere in that range, right? Okay. Let's call it 20. So media is going to get 10,000 because they're going to do the work for me. I'm going to keep 10,000 in my bottom line for FETC, and they're going to keep $10,000 in their bottom line for the events and lead gen. Okay? It's back of the house, financial issues. Your salespeople get to keep their commission. But at the end of the day, everybody's happy, right? Found revenue. Didn't know about it, keeping your group working, and there's not that all feeling of, wait a minute, events just sold this. We're not getting any revenue, but I got to take my staff and fulfill it, right? Everybody's thinking that, right? You are, I can tell you. You're just looking at me just like that. Her eyebrows just went up when I said that, because I know that's what everybody thinks, right? Well, if you can share that revenue and it's found money, everybody's much better off. Next slide, please. So, pitfalls. Number one pitfall, limited training. I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know how to sell this. I don't know what the cost benefits are. I don't know what the ROI is for the customer. I don't know how much it actually costs to do. This happens a lot, particularly on things where there's a variable costs, like custom events. A lot of variable costs in custom events. You don't want somebody who doesn't know what they're doing selling a product for you that costs you a lot of money to produce, okay? So you might want to make a decision. You know what? Custom events or a in-depth webinar, you got to get it approved before you do any pricing, whatever the case may be, okay? Improper target identification, which then leads to time expense and loss of prime focus. Make sure that your salespeople are not spending time trying to sell something, you know, ice cubes to Eskimos, right? If they don't have the money and they're a startup company, they can ask the question, okay, but they should be upfront. This is how much these things cost. This is what it is. And if there's interest, great. If there isn't, then move on, okay? Because you do not want to lose focus for your salespeople. All you're trying to do is find additional revenue. You're not trying to reduce your sales team's productivity, okay? Variable costs. Again, as I said before, lack of expedient review process. You have to have a review process. Michael's going to talk about how they do it at Asset International, what they do as it relates to reviewing those proposals. You have to have a set. If you have standard material that you are giving to your salespeople on both sides that they can use, and they're adhering to that, it should be just a check off. Yep, you're right. Or if there's a custom opportunity, they're going to the correct person before they're pitching price. Because again, here is the key thing I will leave you, and I'm going to hand off to Michael now, is the key thing is you don't want your salespeople wasting their time on something, a fool's errand, right? And you don't want them spending all of their time. By the way, this has happened to us with a salesperson 4 weeks ago, okay? What happens is that they get the information, they pitch it. When it goes from the expert to the salesperson, something was lost in translation, the pricing changed, they came back and they said, there's no way we're going to do that, not at that price. Now what do you have to do? Now what does your salesperson have to do? They got to back up, they got to call, wait a minute, I made a mistake, that's not the right price, right? They didn't end up buying anything anyway. How many hours was lost because of not clear communication and not a clear review process, all right? So I'm now going to hand off to Michael. If anybody have any direct questions right now for me, we can also deal with them at the end. Michael.
Thank you, Patrick. It's always the best place to be at the end of a conference, being the last speaker right before, running up against the cocktail party. So I only have like 4 or 5 hours worth of slides, and we'll get out of here by 9. No. So as Patrick said, I'm Mike Garity. I work for Asset International. And so I think the cat's already out of the bag in terms of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about our team at Asset International and how we sell an integrated approach. So we pretty much sell everything. So I was thinking of how would I actually present this to this audience? What is really important? So what I'm going to do is really talk about some of the things that we believe got us there, why we are doing it now, and then really talk more about what are we doing? How we make it successful for ourselves? What are the keys to success for our organization? Can you just move the slide? So first I want to give you a quick view of what my perspective is, where I come from. I am it's true, an events animal like Patrick is. How media has evolved, some very quick background. I don't think I need to really go into a history in this room with this audience, but I think it helps set up what we're doing at Asset International. How media sales has had to adapt with the evolution of media, and then really where we're at Asset International and what we're doing. And then we'll walk through some of those keys to success. So if you can just move forward. So just briefly, again, I've been in the business for 20 years, not 25 like Patrick, but 20 plus years, and primarily focused on events. I've been in the event world, really leading the business of events for a number of different companies like Dow Jones, Informa, IDG, now Asset International. Asset International is a brand that holds both data research products and companies, and also a number of different B2B media brands. And my job is really to run the events portfolio that really spans across all of these different groups, primarily in the B2B media space. And we have B2B magazines, and we have events for a number of those groups. A lot of conferences, anywhere from 200 to 500 people, awards dinners, seminars, things like that. None of the big trade shows that Patrick was talking about. But, and then we also do events for our research brands. It's just a great opportunity to get in front of their clients and really talk about the research they do. So I oversee an $8 million portfolio there. Can you move forward? So just briefly, media has evolved. I think we're all aware of that. In the old days, and these may be the limited choices, there's certainly more back in the day, but back 20 years ago, people were looking at buying an ad in a magazine, buying a sponsorship at an event or a booth, and then ultimately the internet came aboard, and Leslie kind of walked through. There's a few more things I believe that a couple of banner ads you can buy, but it started out that way. And now today, look at where we're at. I mean, traditional media products are just part of the puzzle. There's emerging technologies, emerging media, social media has really taken hold and really driven a lot of decisions that your media buyers are making. And then just the emerging technologies that are just, we're at where we're at today, but that's just going to continue to evolve. You know, we have looking at things, faster video delivery has just changed the way that people are consuming video online. Content aggregation is just changing the way that media is delivering, companies are delivering content to their audiences, and everything else. The app generation is what it is. It's huge and it's growing. Can you move forward? And so, you know, there's just ultimately a freedom of choice. You know, I've listed here in the old days, and again, I'm simplifying, but you know, you were buying an ad, you were buying a sponsorship, you were buying a, you know, ultimately a banner ad when the internet arrived. But today, it is just, these are a number of the products that we sell, but there's many, many more that this is out there. And what that boils down to is the decision that the buyers that you're trying to connect with have to make. It's not just about, are they buying from your magazine or someone else's magazine or the, you know, the fall event or the spring event. It's just so much more. So we can move forward, please. So just just to simplify that, I mean, they're faced with so many different challenges that, you know, as a player in this market, as someone who's selling various types of media opportunities, and I include events in that media conversation. You know, we're selling these things. How are you going to capture the largest share? And at Astor International, we feel that to do that, you go forward, please. You really have to focus on a solution-centric sell. It's not about products anymore. It's really about going into your audience, understanding what they need, and selling them, you know, a package that fits their needs. And it could fit into a lot of different buckets within your media channel portfolio. So you go forward. You know, and again, today's sorry to Patrick, who's halfway there, but you know, we see that, you know, in the old days, it was you had a sales team for each one of these groups. And today, we really have more of a toolbox approach. So we have sellers that can go out and talk to various types of buyers, because there's certainly, we'll show that in a minute, but there's a lot of different people out there that are spending money. They're going out there and they're finding the best products to sell to them and giving them the opportunities they need. Can you move forward, please? So with that, I'd like to really talk through about what Astor International is doing and really what are some of the keys to success that we find in this integrated media approach. So first off, if you kind of look through, see some of the things we're going to talk about today, but if you can go to the next slide. I wanted to use one of our examples. We have a number of different magazines in our portfolio, and I thought I picked the most confusing and hard to describe group that we have, where we have three key magazines in our portfolio, probably the most profitable in our groups, that Plan Advisor, Plan Sponsor, and Chief Investment Officer. And they all focus on selling into the asset management community and the financial services world. But they're different buyers within that group, and they have different needs, but they kind of have a little bit of a blended approach and some connections. So you're either talking to the same guy, or you're talking to the guy sitting down the hall when you're selling one of the other magazines. And so for this group, we have 5 sales executives that sell into this market. And again, they're selling that whole toolbox worth of products into the group. And then I noted that within this, we also have leaders in these groups. I mean, I'm the event leader for all of the products in our brand, and particularly in this group as well. And then we also have a digital leader, someone who's keeping an eye on that, developing products, guiding the sales force on the digital side. A print leader, we have publishers for each of our magazines. This isn't all as clear as it sounds. We do have some of it, like a publisher may also be carrying a book and selling into a brand. Some others may just be guiding the brand itself. Then we also, I include our research group, because we do have a whole research side that surveys our audience and can deliver data and research from the results of questioning them. So if you move forward, please. And again, we're selling a whole toolbox of packages. This group, these 5 sellers, go out there and they have a whole toolbox to sell. So the question we really have to ask is, how are they doing that? How are they able to bring all these things together? I mean, Patrick talked about some of the challenges with training, some of the ideas. It's really hard to really get your group together to keep it all together. How do you explain a video interview one day, and then you have you're talking about an event sponsorship or a custom media program? But we're able to do it. We do it well. So you can move forward, please. So first, I want to apologize for my relatively lame baseball analogy here, but I thought at least it does kind of make sense when you look at it, but bear with me. So, I mean, first thing we do is, when you're looking at a client, there's a lot of different ways you're interacting with them. First off, I mean, I think the majority of everyone's sales are in these kind of one-off, kind of someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to do a webcast, I want to buy an ad, I want to do a sponsorship. Fair enough, you're going to get a lot of your business through these base hits. But what we do with our group is that's just really the first stepping stone. Because they're carrying their toolbox, they're able to go back into these companies and ask them more questions and understand what else they can do, what else can they upsell. So it's really those extra bases that are important in those initial sales. So it's talking to people and saying, I want to do a webcast. It's like, that's great. Have you considered perhaps maybe taking that webcast content and translate it into a sponsored article? Write up what you talked about during the webcast. Or you're going to do an event sponsorship. You have any interest in advertising your participation in the event? So we work with our sales team to really kind of get that sell down at every turn. Every time they're talking to a client, there's that opportunity. And just some of the other initiatives, I mean, the doubles and triples in our world are really kind of those, a client that comes to you and says, we're doing a new strategic marketing initiative. We want to get some print. We want to advertise. We want to do something online. And again, you need to listen to those people, understand what they want to do, and then come back to them with a package that makes sense. And that package, if we weren't an integrated sales team, it would be missing some of those elements. But since we are, they can come with all the tools and deliver those to the audience, to the client. And then finally, kind of the grand poobahs, if you can sit down, and we're doing a lot of these now, is really sitting down on an annual basis and sitting with the client saying, all right, what's your plans for 2015? How do we fit in? What can we do to help? Just the bottom line is knowing your customer's marketing goals and really kind of playing to those in a consultative approach is really what's helping us drive integrated sales. Move forward, please. So again, knowing your customers. When we go to a meeting, we're not asking, hi, what would you like to buy? It's more, hi, what's your strategy this year? What are the opportunities for growth? What's your target audience? What are you trying to do? What are the marketing messages? Getting in there and really having a conversation with them about their needs. The needs assessment is really the first thing. And I was listening to Leslie earlier when she mentioned her kind of journey to purchase. I mean, I really think this is the that stepping stone to really understand that. Because if you don't understand what they want, you're not going to be able to carve out the right package. So you can move forward, please. Knowledge is power. So the more you know about them, their branding, the content, their audience goals, it's really going to help you provide the right mix of channel alternatives to fit their budget. Move forward, please. Another thing is training. Patrick talked a lot about training his team. And obviously, when you're throwing a large toolbox at your team, it's really important to make sure that they understand what they're selling. So, I mean, to Patrick's point, I mean, we create selling packages that lay out exactly what you're getting on, for a different product. It could be a new sponsorship. As the event guy, I'm always coming up with some goofy sponsorship that I throw at the sales team and, hope that they get it, So it's not just hope they get it. We sit down and we talk about it, and I'll get on calls and work with them to make sure that they understand what we're selling, how it fits into the overall big picture for their clients. Next slide, please. And then, Leslie had a lot of focus on the digital side on metrics, but I think metrics is really more important than ever in anything you're selling. We've spent a lot of time really creating metrics packages prior to the sale to give people an understanding of what they're going to get, and then certainly after the sale, giving them the opportunity to understand what they got. And hopefully what we're delivering is what they were looking for, and that's always the challenge. But it's always important to keep that in mind. Move forward, please. And then kind of on another level, it's something I always like to bring up because we're seeing it in all of our channels that content is just continuing to thrive. And content marketing, as I call it, we call it really a lot of thought leadership is driven in our audience. All the investment management marketers want to make sure that their companies are perceived as the greatest in their investment strategy. So there's always some interest in writing some articles or speaking at an event or doing a webcast or doing a video interview. And so it's our job to really hear that, understand it, and then kind of find a way to create packages that make sense for them. So you can move forward. So another thing just is packages themselves. We create integrated media packages. This is just one very simple example, just kind of as what I just described. They could be sponsoring an event. And they're speaking at that event. It's great to go back to them and say, hey, we got a package for you to really extend that message. You can come back in, we'll interview your speaker at the event. We'll put that up on our website. We'll write an article based on what you spoke about at the event. and we'll publish that in our magazine. And then, of course, we'll promote it in our digital efforts to really make it of true value. So that's been very helpful. When you create this package and put them out there, sometimes it works to have that in hand and go out to a client and say, say for a supplement in a magazine, we're doing a special editorial supplement on X, Y, or Z. If you buy this, you also get a video, and you get the ability to do a webcast or some sort of package that way. But other times, it's more kind of an in-play. You got to get that first content hook, and then you go back to them and upsell other opportunities, similar to that sponsorship opportunity I just mentioned. You can move forward. And so when you're doing that, I mean, one of the challenges, and I think actually one slide that skipped to the beginning was I had this great slide that had a list of all the types of people that you have to work with in a customer's marketing department, you'd say. In the old days, it was, the ad guys bought ads, the events guys bought events, and the digital guys bought digital. But now, you don't know who you're going to be talking to and what they're willing to spend money on. It could be the product manager or the product marketer has a budget to get their message out on this new thought leadership initiative. It could be the advertisers. We've had third-party ad agencies who also have a sponsorship budget, and they spend money on events. Senior management comes in, and sales and business development come in as well, and they want to do something because they want to get their words out there. So it's always a different juggle of who you have to deal with. But once you understand what they're doing, you can understand whether you have the right person or you need to find someone new. And that's kind of what this slide is all about, is really take advantage of the internal relationships you build and then drive that through the organization to get more things sold. So in this example, a conference keynote. Someone comes up, you have the event marketer, they're all excited, they have their CEO is going to speak at the event. That's great. Go back to them after as they're preparing for the event, once they have their content put together, and say, listen, Joe's speaking at the event. Wouldn't it be great if you could get an interview? We could get an interview with him at the event and publish that on our website. And they might be like, oh, that's great, but that's not my role. That's PR. And it's like, okay, well, help me find PR and work your way through there, and then so on and so on, whatever the effort might be. But we've had a lot of success doing that, really getting them as our champions, because then it's coming as an internal, president speaking at the event. You got to come and help do a video. This is a great idea. Let's get your checkbook out. So, which works sometimes. But so another tip to really help make this work. So the next slide. And then one thing that we do, and I think Patrick and I were talking about this before we began. I think that was a little bit of an aha to hear that along with the sales team, and it's great to say, yeah, we have a toolbox. We have photographic memories in our sales team. They know every single product front to back, but they know what they sell. They have their products that they're good at selling, and others that are kind of sitting in the periphery. And that's really where it's my job, and it's our publisher's job, and our digital experts' job to get on the phone with them, get on the phone with their clients, work with them either during the actual conversations or before, during, or after, to really kind of flesh out what are those products that we could be selling. What are the things that do we hear what this client really wants, and do we have things that we can sell them, and how do we create a package that's really going to align with their goals? And we've had a lot of success with that, where there's a lot of different things we're creating. Again, a lot of my goofy sponsorship packages, I'll get out there, get on the phone with these guys, and really talk it through with the salesperson. And they appreciate it. It's really a way to help just close more deals. And just on an incentive basis, and how does that work in the company structure? My role, I'm incentivized on delivering the event budget. Publishers are selling the magazine budget, and the media guys are selling the digital budget as well. But when we get together, I mean, we really have to work together. So it's not all about me. It's about the overall company. And for one reason or another, it works. I mean, we know that what we're selling today, when I'm selling an ad page today, tomorrow my peer is going to be selling a sponsorship to one of his clients on another call. So it all works out on the experts level. And then, so the next slide is really kind of the last thing here is really what are the selling requirements for the team? Our team is compensated. There's an expectation in all of these categories. And it's not an expectation that's weighted one way or the other. I mean, that there may be a higher number on one end or another based on what we think we could sell, but they're incentivized across the board. And that's critical, because if they're not, there's that that risk that, you know, they're going to go to sell what they need to sell, and everything else is just kind of a nice to have, not a need to have. And we need them focused on just finding the right solution for our clients. And that's what we do. So just in summary, you can go to the next slide, please. You know, 8 takeaways. Know your customer. Understand what their needs are, you know, before you even get into these meetings. It's not about coming to them with a product. It's coming to them with a solution that they can use based on whatever their needs are. Use a consultative approach. It's always a tough word to say. But be flexible with the packages that you sell. You know, I mean, come there with that toolbox, but then be ready to evolve that toolbox to something that's going to make sense for the client. Train, train, train. Training is critical. You can't just create these packages and kind of throw them, send an email out to the team and hope for the best. You really have to sit down with them, talk through who's it going to be of value to, why is it important, and that's in every level. That's events, media, digital. And then metrics matter. It's always important to be prepared to give them metrics that they could use to talk about the value of things, and then also be prepared to actually deliver those to the client at the end of the campaign. And then finally, just last few, content is king. Create packages that sell. You know, there's packages do work. It's just a matter of coming up with them in the right. You know, you don't want that cherry picking approach that Leslie warned about, because that can happen if you have something you think you have the greatest thing since sliced bread with 15 different things stuffed into it at a wonderful price, but then people will just start questioning. It's like, well, I don't really need that, or I don't want to do that. So again, listen to what your client wants and have a package in hand that meets their needs. Help from experts. I think that's one of the important tools we have, is really working with our team and being helpful. We're helpful there. And then incentivize equally. And then that will ultimately resolve. You have to capture the largest share of your clients' budgets.